Marcus Bell found his 13-year-old son's hidden journal inside a dented lunchbox at 5:42 on Saturday morning. The first sentence he read was, "I think Dad loves the restaurant more than me." By 6 that evening, Marcus was supposed to serve the most important dinner of his career. A hospitality group was prepared to buy Bellwether Kitchen, clear the business debt carrying his personal guarantee, and make him culinary director of 3 new locations. It was the kind of security he had spent 11 years trying to build for Caleb. But the notebook in his hands said Caleb wanted to leave his house and live with his mother. It also said Sunday was the day he planned to tell him. Marcus stood alone in the pantry, holding proof that everything he had called sacrifice might have looked very different from the other side. He had gone looking for his grandmother's red recipe card, the one for corn and crab chowder that had built his first winter menu. The buyers had requested a dish with a family story, which was how people in expensive jackets asked for something they could put in a press release. Marcus remembered Caleb borrowing the old lunchbox for a school project, so he had climbed onto a step stool and pulled it from the top pantry shelf. The recipe card was tucked beneath a black spiral notebook. On the cover in Caleb's square handwriting were 6 words, "Private." "Seriously, Dad. Put it back." Marcus later understood that the warning should have been enough. At the time he told himself he only opened it to find the card. Then he saw his own name. One sentence became a page. One page became 19 months of his son learning not to ask him for anything. The journal was not arranged like a diary. Caleb disliked long entries and distrusted anything that looked too much like homework. He had made columns. Date. What Dad promised. What happened. Why it wasn't his fault. The last column hurt most because Marcus recognized every excuse. A cook called out. The freezer alarm went off. Ray needed help with payroll. A party of 20 arrived late. The health inspector moved the appointment. Under one entry from October, Caleb had written, "Dad says Saturday breakfast still counts as time together, even when he takes 4 calls. I counted." Under another, "He came to my audio showcase for 11 minutes. In the car he told me the microphone levels were wrong. I think that was his way of saying he liked it." Marcus turned the page and found a heading in darker ink. "Rules Dad doesn't know he has. Don't ask when he is checking invoices. Don't ask before dinner service. Don't ask after dinner service because he is tired. Don't ask on his day off because that is when he fixes the house. Don't ask when he is in a good mood because you might ruin it. Don't say, 'It's fine,' unless you are ready for him to believe you." At the bottom, Caleb had added, "Dad always says, 'Taste first, then fix it.' He means soup." Marcus read that line 3 times. It was his rule in the kitchen and the phrase he had used when Caleb was small enough to stand on a chair beside the stove. Taste first. Then decide what is missing. Marcus had believed it taught patience. Apparently he had taught it to everyone except himself. The house made a small settling noise above him. Caleb would be asleep for another hour if Marcus was lucky. He should have closed the notebook. Instead he turned to the newest entry. "Mom said I can stay with her during the school week if Dad agrees. She did not tell me to ask. This was my idea. I know Dad will say her apartment is smaller, her schedule changes, and my bus ride will be longer. Those are facts. He uses facts like locks. We are telling him Sunday after lunch. If he gets mad, I'm supposed to call Mom. I don't think he will hurt me. I think he will make me feel stupid until I agree with him." Marcus's thumb pressed so hard into the paper that it left a crescent. Of every accusation in the book, that was the one he wanted to reject fastest. He had never called Caleb stupid. He had never raised a hand to him. He had built his whole life around making sure the boy felt safe. "Why do you have that?" Caleb asked from the pantry door. Marcus turned. His son wore flannel pajama pants and one sock. His hair stood up on the left side and his eyes were not sleepy anymore. They went straight to the notebook. Marcus could have apologized before anything else. He could have set it down, admitted he had crossed a line, and asked whether Caleb wanted space. Instead, fear chose the first words for him. "You're planning to move out?" Caleb's face closed so quickly Marcus could almost see the door swing shut. "You read it." "I was looking for Nana's card." "Was the card on every page?" "Don't get smart with me. Your mother has no business arranging this behind my back." "She didn't." "Then why does it say she agreed?" "Because I asked her. It literally says that." Marcus heard the volume in his own voice and lowered it without making it kinder. "You are not changing homes and schools because you're upset that I work. Adults don't make decisions this big in a notebook." Caleb stared at him. "No. You make them on the refrigerator." He walked past Marcus, took the journal from his hand, and found the red recipe card beneath it. He placed the card on the pantry shelf between them. There. Emergency solved. Then he went upstairs and shut his bedroom door. He did not slam it. Somehow that felt worse. Marcus called Dana before 6:30. He did not begin with hello. How long have you been planning to take Caleb? There was a pause, then the faint scrape of a chair. Dana Bell had learned during 12 years of marriage that Marcus became formal when he was frightened and prosecutorial when he believed formality had failed. I'm not taking him, she said. He asked me 3 weeks ago if he could stay here more often. I said the three of us needed to talk. You said he could live with you during the week. I said we could discuss it. How do you know exactly what I said? Marcus looked toward the ceiling. I found his journal. Found it or read it? Dana, this is not about privacy. He is talking about changing custody. It is absolutely about privacy if you read something marked private and then used it to ambush him. Her voice stayed controlled, which Marcus found infuriating because it made his own anger sound reckless. We were coming tomorrow. He wanted one day where neither of us was running somewhere. He isn't moving. You haven't even asked why he wants to. I know why. He thinks my job means I don't care. That is not what I said. It's what you have implied for years. Dana exhaled. Marcus, listen to yourself. You called to ask me a question and you have answered it 6 times without me. He ended the call before she could say more. It was a childish move, and he knew it the second his thumb touched the screen. He put the phone face down anyway. On the refrigerator, his weekly board was divided into 3 colors. Blue for Caleb. Black for the restaurant. Green for household tasks. Saturday's black section began at 10 in the morning and ended after midnight. Caleb's blue section had 1 item. Dinner at Bellwether, 6 o'clock, buyer tasting. Marcus had written it there 2 weeks earlier without asking whether Caleb wanted to attend. He had told himself it was a family milestone. By 8, Caleb was dressed and waiting in the front hall with his backpack. Mom's picking me up. You are scheduled to be at the restaurant tonight. Caleb glanced at the board. Then maybe take an eraser to me. Enough. Marcus moved between him and the door, not blocking it exactly but close enough that Caleb noticed. The buyers expect to meet you. This restaurant is part of your life too. That's the problem. What does that mean? Caleb gripped one backpack strap. It was a small habit Marcus had seen for months and never interpreted correctly. It means you use me in the story when people ask why you opened the place. You say you wanted a restaurant where families could slow down. Then you tell me to sit in the office because you're busy. I am doing tonight for us. You always are. Dana's car stopped at the curb. Marcus could see her through the glass, both hands still on the steering wheel. She was not coming to the door. She was giving him a chance to let Caleb leave without turning it into a scene. Marcus stepped aside. Caleb opened the door, then looked back as if he might say something. Marcus waited for an apology, an explanation, even an accusation he could answer. Caleb only said, "Don't read the rest." Then he walked to the car. At Bellwether Kitchen, a 6-foot banner hung across the private dining room. Families deserve time at the table. The line had been Marcus's idea. 11 years earlier, when Caleb was 2 and Marcus and Dana were still married, he had imagined a neighborhood restaurant that closed early enough for staff to go home and served food that did not require anyone to pronounce foam as a noun. The first year, Bellwether closed at 9. By year 4, it closed at 10. By year 7, private events ran until midnight, brunch had swallowed Sundays, and the staff schedule had become a puzzle Marcus solved by moving other people's lives into the available spaces. The dining room still sold the original promise. The kitchen had stopped living it a long time ago. Ray Mercer stood under the banner arranging sample menus. He had been Marcus's business partner since the beginning, a patient accountant with an expensive talent for noticing when a dream was 6 weeks from missing payroll. "Where's Caleb?" he asked. "With Dana." Ray looked at the empty chair beside Marcus's place setting. "Tonight." "Apparently." Harbor and Field specifically asked for the family dinner. "Stephanie wants a photograph of the 2 of you with the chowder card." Marcus held up the red card. "They can photograph this. A recipe card doesn't smile." Neither would Caleb. Ray studied him. "What happened?" Marcus tied on his apron. "Nothing I can fix before service." "That sentence has never stopped you before." Marcus went into the kitchen. He checked the chowder, tasted the stock, and immediately reached for salt. Kiera Lewis, his sous chef, caught his wrist with 2 fingers before he could add it. She had worked beside him for 6 years and was one of 3 people in Cincinnati who could interrupt him at a stove without creating an argument. "Taste the crab after it goes in," she said. "It's carrying more salt than yesterday." Marcus set the salt down. I know how to finish my own soup. Then why did your face just ask me to save it? On most days he would have appreciated the joke. That morning he looked at the line schedule instead. Kiera had been assigned a double, even though the availability sheet clipped beneath it said she needed to leave by 9 for her sister's engagement party. Marcus had marked the request preference, not guarantee. He had used those exact words so often they no longer sounded like a decision he was making. They sounded like a natural law. Go at 9, he said. Kiera blinked. What? I'll close your station. Is this a trick? Just go. She watched him for a moment. Thank you. But you know one decent Saturday doesn't make you Santa Claus. I was not aiming for Santa Claus. Good. The beard would violate sanitation. At 5:40, Stephanie Vale arrived with 3 executives from Harbor and Field Hospitality. Stephanie was in her early 50s, direct without being rude, and professionally allergic to any statement she could not place in a spreadsheet or a campaign. She had an independent reason to make the acquisition work. Her company had overexpanded into sterile, interchangeable restaurants, and Bellwether offered the neighborhood credibility their research said customers missed. Marcus respected that she did not pretend otherwise. We need your food, she had told him at their first meeting, but we are paying extra for the meaning people attach to it. At the time, Marcus had been flattered. Now he kept seeing Caleb in the front hall saying, "You use me in the story." The tasting began well. The chowder had the right balance because Marcus waited before salting it. The braised short ribs came apart under a fork without surrendering their shape. Stephanie asked precise questions about labor, sourcing, and whether Marcus could standardize his instincts for cooks he had never met. He answered them all. Competence was the place he went when emotion became unmanageable. A recipe did not accuse him of loving it incorrectly. A kitchen problem stayed solved after he solved it. Then Stephanie lifted the red card from the display board. This belonged to your grandmother? Yes. And you taught Caleb with it? Marcus looked toward the empty chair. He used to stand beside me while I cooked. That is the campaign, she said to her marketing director. 3 generations. A father building a table for his son. Ray smiled because this was exactly what they needed. Marcus felt something colder. Caleb isn't part of the sale. Stephanie's attention returned to him. The restaurant's origin story is part of the sale. Your son appears in material already on your website. A photograph from when he was 5. We can remove it. We can discuss future approvals, but the family narrative is central to the valuation. Ray cleared his throat. Marcus means we will need Dana's consent for any new use. That's manageable. Marcus did not correct him. He finished the service, accepted compliments, and watched people buy the idea of his fatherhood between courses. When Kiera left at 9, she paused by the office and said, "For what it's worth, he doesn't hate this place." Marcus looked up from a cost sheet. Who? Caleb. Did he tell you something? He asked me things. There's a difference. What things? Kiera shook her head. Ask him. And this time, wait longer than 3 seconds for the answer. He almost called her back. Instead, he opened the old family photo on Bellwether's website. Caleb was 5, wearing a paper chef's hat and holding a wooden spoon. Marcus stood behind him, younger and thinner, flour on his forearm. The caption read, Chef Marcus Bell built Bellwether Kitchen so no parent would have to choose between meaningful work and meaningful time with family. Marcus had written that copy himself. He had believed every word. When he returned home after 1 in the morning, the black journal was gone. The old lunchbox sat open on the kitchen table. Inside it, Caleb had left a digital recorder with a strip of blue tape across the back. Marcus recognized it from the school audio showcase he had attended for 11 minutes. A note lay beneath it. This is for my project. Do not listen without asking. I mean it. Marcus picked up the recorder. A file name glowed on its small screen. Who gets a seat, draft 4. His finger hovered over play. Then he set it down. It was the first correct choice he had made all day and nobody was there to see it. Sunday morning, Marcus erased the buyer dinner from the refrigerator board. He wrote talk to Caleb at noon in blue, stared at it and erased that too. The habit was so automatic it embarrassed him. Dana arrived with Caleb at 12:15. Caleb carried the black journal against his chest and kept the recorder in his jacket pocket. Dana had once been Bellwether's first event manager. Now she coordinated productions at a downtown performing arts center, work that came in waves but did not follow her home every night. The divorce had not happened because she hated the restaurant. It had happened because she got tired of being told each new emergency would be the last one. They sat at the kitchen table. Marcus had made grilled cheese and tomato soup because Caleb used to request it whenever he was sick. Caleb looked at the food and said, "I'm not 8. I know. Do you?" Dana touched the edge of her bowl. "We agreed nobody would begin by attacking anybody." "I did not agree," Caleb said. "You two agreed for me." Marcus felt the familiar urge to correct his tone. He let it pass. "You're right. Start however you need to." Caleb looked suspicious, as though patience might be a tactic. "I want to stay at Mom's Monday through Thursday. That means changing buses, morning routines, and probably the address the school has on file." Caleb gave Dana a tired look. "See?" Marcus stopped. "Facts like locks. All right. That was me doing it again." The admission changed the room by only an inch, but it changed it. Caleb loosened his grip on the journal. "I'm not trying to stop seeing you. I want to know which nights I'm going to eat with an adult. Mom's schedule is weird, but when she works late she tells me. At your house, you say you're 20 minutes away until I fall asleep. Mrs. Alvarez is next door. Mrs. Alvarez is nice. She is not you." Marcus looked at Dana. "Why didn't you tell me he was alone that often?" "Because whenever I asked, you said he was old enough for 2 hours and that the restaurant was 7 minutes away." "It is 7 minutes away." Caleb pushed back his chair. "I'm done." Marcus closed his eyes. "Wait. Please." The word please made Caleb pause. Marcus forced himself to ask the question he had avoided because he feared the answer. "Is the restaurant the only reason?" Caleb looked down at the recorder in his pocket. "No. What else?" "You don't want to know. You want to know what to fix. Maybe I can do both. You can't even apologize for reading my journal without explaining why you did it." Marcus had rehearsed an apology in the shower. Every version contained a defense. He had been scared. The custody issue was serious. The notebook was in his house. He swallowed all of it. "I read something that you told me was private. Then I used it against you. I was wrong." Caleb's eyes moved to his face. "That's it. That's it. You're still thinking the other stuff." "Yes. At least that's honest." Dana hid a brief smile behind her water glass. Marcus did not feel forgiven, but he felt for the first time that they were discussing the same event. He asked Caleb what schedule he wanted and wrote nothing down. Caleb proposed 4 school nights with Dana, Friday after school through Monday morning with Marcus, and 1 Wednesday dinner together if Marcus could promise to be home. Marcus hated the arrangement. It reduced him from primary parent to a long weekend in his own mind, though nobody else used those words. He wanted to list every reason it was inefficient. Instead, he said he needed time to consider it and promised an answer by Wednesday. "A real answer?" Caleb asked. "Or the answer until the restaurant calls?" Marcus looked at the untouched soup between them. "A real one." Caleb nodded once. It was not trust. It was a 3-day extension. On Monday, Marcus arrived at Bellwether before 7 and found Ray waiting in the office with the purchase summary open on his laptop. Harbor and Field had increased the proposed salary to $225,000, nearly twice what Marcus paid himself in a good year. They would assume the restaurant's remaining equipment loan, release both partners from the lease guarantee, and give Marcus a small percentage of the new locations. In return, he would sign a 3-year employment agreement, spend the first 18 months opening restaurants in Indianapolis, Louisville, and Columbus, and remain available for promotional events. Ray tapped the page as if the numbers could settle any argument. "This is the exit we said we wanted," he said. "Not someday. This one." Marcus had said those words. During a bad winter 2 years earlier, he and Ray had missed payroll for themselves 3 times. Marcus had refinanced his house to cover vendor debt. Ray had borrowed against his retirement account. They had promised each other they would never again confuse stubbornness with loyalty. Now a serious buyer was offering enough money to make both men whole. Marcus should have felt relief. Instead, he noticed the travel clause and calculated how many Wednesday dinners it would erase before Caleb stopped placing them on any schedule at all. "I need limits on travel," Marcus said. "We have limits. 12 nights a month. That's the maximum, written as if it's normal." Ray leaned back. "Since when do you object to working 12 nights?" The question landed because Ray was not being cruel. Marcus had spent years treating exhaustion as proof of character. He had answered calls on vacations, left his own birthday dinner to inspect a leaking walk-in, and once driven through an ice storm because a closing manager could not reset an alarm. Whenever Ray suggested hiring another operations lead, Marcus said they could not afford one. Whenever Ray suggested closing a service, Marcus said customers expected consistency. He had built the cage carefully enough that everyone mistook it for the building. Since Caleb asked to live somewhere else, Marcus said. Ray's irritation softened but did not disappear. I'm sorry. I am. But we can't restructure a 7-figure acquisition around a 13-year-old being angry with his father. That is exactly how I have been talking about him. Marcus, come on. You want honesty? Here it is. Caleb will grow up. College will happen in 5 years. This offer may never happen again. You could pay for any school he gets into. He has to still want me there when he gets in. Ray looked away first. His own daughters were 20 and 22. He had missed things too, though his wife, Elaine, had absorbed the gaps without making the business look directly at them. Ask for the travel revision, he said. Don't threaten the whole deal before they answer. Marcus agreed. It was sensible, limited, and exactly the kind of compromise that allowed him to postpone the harder question. At 10 he held the weekly manager meeting. Bellwether's employee handbook described scheduling as collaborative and family-conscious. Marcus had approved the sentence. In practice, managers built the schedule around projected sales, then invited employees to report conflicts that were treated according to how inconvenient they were. Marcus asked Kiera how many requests had been denied in the previous month. She pulled a folded page from her binder. 23. That many? You initialed 19. He remembered none individually. That was the efficiency of a system. It could distribute harm so thinly that no single decision felt important to the person making it. Luis, the pastry cook, had missed a parent conference. Nia, a server, had paid a sitter for a mandatory meeting that ended after 12 minutes. Omar, the evening dishwasher, had asked for every other Thursday to take his father to physical therapy and received 2 of the 4 because Marcus had marked the request, subject to business need. The words were reasonable. The pattern was not. Why didn't anyone tell me this wasn't working? Marcus asked. Kiera folded her arms. We did. You solved each person separately. You swapped one shift, gave somebody an hour, covered a station yourself, and called it handled. Then the same thing happened the next week. If I covered the shift, what else was I supposed to do? Ask why the place only works when somebody disappoints their family. Marcus looked around the table. Nobody appeared shocked by her sentence. His managers looked relieved that someone else had said it. Is this what Caleb was asking you about? Kiera's expression changed. Some of it. He's making an audio project. He asked if he could interview me about restaurant hours. I said yes. He asked everyone's permission before recording. Did you tell him I don't care about the staff? No. I told him you care so much that you make yourself responsible for everything, and then you expect everyone to be grateful for whichever pieces of you are left. There was no polite way to receive that. Marcus ended the meeting with instructions to bring him a list of recurring availability needs and left the office before he began defending himself. In the walk-in refrigerator, surrounded by labeled containers and steady mechanical noise, he called Caleb. The call went to voicemail. Marcus started to say he needed to discuss the recording, stopped, and deleted the message. His second attempt was shorter. Hey, I know your project involves the restaurant. I won't listen without you. If you want to tell me about it, I will try to listen. No fixing. I'm working on that. Caleb responded 20 minutes later with a text. Trying is a suspicious word from you. Then, after another minute, maybe Wednesday. That afternoon, Stephanie Vale called about the travel clause. Harbor and Field could reduce the stated maximum to 10 nights per month after the first 6 months, but they needed flexibility during openings. This role is not a 9-to-5 position, she said. Neither is my current one. That is the issue. The issue from our side is key person dependence. Bellwether's value is attached to you. We need access to the asset we are acquiring. Marcus understood the language. He had used versions of it about ovens, liquor licenses, and recipes. I'm a person, Stephanie. Of course you are. A person whose presence materially affects the purchase price. She was not insulting him. She was describing the deal accurately, which made it harder to dismiss. Harbor and Field did not want only his food. They wanted his nights, his face, his son's childhood photograph, and the credibility of a promise he had stopped keeping. They had put a price on the whole arrangement. Marcus had spent years hoping someone would. Tuesday brought the first practical consequence of his sudden interest in other people's schedules. When Marcus approved every standing availability request for the next 2 weeks, the projected Friday dinner shift came up short by a host, 2 servers, and a dishwasher. Ray circled the labor report in red. This is why requests aren't guarantees. Then we hire enough people to make them real. With what money? We are already at 34% labor. Turnover cost us $48,000 last year. And the buyer is about to make that their problem. Marcus had no clean answer. Treating people better did not make arithmetic disappear. He moved 2 reservations to later seatings, closed the smallest dining section, and added himself to dish from 7 to close. It was a workable emergency solution and the exact old behavior Kiera had described. Marcus absorbing a broken system until everyone could pretend it functioned. He saw the contradiction. He did it anyway because Friday was 4 days away and principals did not wash pans. At home that evening, the refrigerator board was blank except for Wednesday dinner, 6:30, written in Caleb's blue marker. Marcus had not put it there. Dana must have stopped by with him after school. Beneath the words, Caleb had drawn a question mark. Marcus took a photograph of the board before leaving for the restaurant. At 6:15 on Wednesday, Ray followed him into the kitchen while he removed his apron. Stephanie moved the contract call to 6:30, Ray said. I can't. She has legal, finance and the regional president joining. Then all of them can discover 7 o'clock. You wrote, available after 6 on the email. Marcus checked the message. He had. He had sent it Sunday night, after promising Caleb an answer and before realizing he was still donating every unclaimed minute to work. Ray watched him search for a solution. The old Marcus would have called Dana, explained that serious adults were waiting, and offered Caleb Thursday instead. Tell them I made a scheduling error, he said. They won't like that. I don't like it either. You could take the call from home. No. Ray lowered his voice. Be careful that guilt doesn't turn you stupid. Marcus folded his apron and set it on the counter. Be careful that money doesn't make you call every boundary stupid. He regretted the sentence as soon as Ray's face changed. Ray had earned the right to care about the money. The restaurant owed him years too. Marcus started to apologize but Ray stepped aside and said, go have dinner. Caleb arrived with Dana carrying takeout from a Thai place because Marcus had promised dinner but had not planned food. The irony was not lost on anyone. Dana stayed only long enough to place the containers on the table. I'll pick him up at 8:30, she said. He can stay tonight, Marcus replied. Caleb took off his jacket. Mom has my school stuff. Marcus almost said they could retrieve it, then caught himself. 8:30 is fine. They ate for 4 minutes before Marcus asked about the project. Caleb chewed slowly, buying time. It started as a sound map, he said. We had to record one place and tell a story without showing it. The restaurant. It has good sounds. The ticket printer. Knives. The walk-in door. The dishwasher sounds like a truck falling downstairs. Marcus smiled despite himself. That is an accurate technical description. Then I heard Nia calling her son from the supply closet. She was telling him where the frozen pizza was. The banner outside said families deserve time at the table, and she was missing dinner to serve dinner. Caleb's voice became careful. So I changed the project. Did your teacher approve recording employees at work? Caleb put down his fork. That was a real question, Marcus said, not an attempt to stop you. Ms. Hahn gave me release forms. Everyone I used signed one. I didn't record customers. Kiera checked where I put the microphone. Marcus nodded. That was responsible. The compliment seemed to make Caleb more uneasy than criticism would have. He pulled the recorder from his bag and set it between them. You can hear the first 4 minutes. If you start arguing with the people in it, I'm turning it off. Fair. And you don't get to ask who said something if the name isn't included. I don't like that condition. Then don't listen. Marcus looked at the recorder. Fair. Caleb pressed play. The first sound was the dining room before opening. Chairs moving, silverware landing, a vacuum shutting off. Then Caleb's recorded voice, less certain than the writing in his journal. Bellwether Kitchen says families deserve time at the table. My dad made up that sentence. He is the chef and he is good at feeding people. This story is about who is missing from the table when the food gets there. A server described FaceTiming her 7-year-old during staff meal. A cook said restaurant people got used to celebrating birthdays on Tuesdays because customers owned the weekends. Omar said he did not mind hard work. He minded being told family mattered only when his family needed nothing. The interviews were not dramatic. That made them convincing. Then Marcus heard his own voice recorded from several feet away. If it isn't on the availability form, I can't protect it. A woman answered, it was on the form. Marcus said, then I must have missed it. I'll fix today, but next time remind me earlier. The clip ended. Caleb stopped the recorder. Marcus remembered the conversation. Nia had requested a Saturday off for her son's tournament. Marcus had overlooked it, then rearranged half the floor when she confronted him. He had thought fixing the shift proved he cared. In Caleb's project, the exchange sounded different. Nia had done everything required, Marcus had failed, and somehow his answer still assigned her responsibility for preventing his mistake. "How did you get that?" he asked.
"I was recording the ticket printer. You walked into the server station. I asked Nia afterward if I could use it. You didn't ask me." Caleb reached for the recorder. Marcus placed both hands flat on the table. "I am not saying you should have. I'm noticing that was my first reaction." Caleb left the recorder where it was. "Is the whole project about me?" Marcus asked. "No. That's what you think, because you think everything there is your responsibility. A lot of it is. Kiera says that too." Marcus leaned back. "Kiera is becoming extremely expensive to employ." Caleb laughed before he could stop himself. It was one short sound, but Marcus had not heard it directed at him in weeks. He wanted to grab the moment and turn it into evidence that they were improving. He let it remain one laugh. "Why is all of this in your journal?" Marcus asked. Caleb traced a water ring on the table. "Ms. Hahn told us to keep field notes. It started as project stuff. Then it was easier to write other things there, because you thought it was homework." That was the second meaning of the notebook. Marcus had assumed it held private complaints about him. It also documented a system he had created, one small compromise at a time. His son had hidden feelings among interviews about invisible labor because both subjects followed the same rule. The person with the least power learned to make the least noise. "Why didn't you tell me you were doing this?" Marcus asked. "I tried. At the showcase." Marcus remembered arriving late and standing against the wall while Caleb played a 90-second sound collage. In the car, Marcus had asked why the voices were difficult to hear and suggested moving the music lower. He had not asked what the project was becoming. "You did," he said. "You said the levels were wrong. They were a little low." Caleb stared at him. "That was a joke," Marcus said. "A bad one. Very bad. I'm sorry I missed what you were trying to show me." Caleb looked at his food. "The project is due Friday. I withdrew it from the district showcase." "Why?" "Because Harbor and Field's lawyer emailed Ms. Hahn." Marcus stopped breathing for a second. "What lawyer?" "The school called Mom yesterday. Somebody said the recordings might include confidential business information and that using Bellwether's name could damage the deal." Dana had not mentioned it. Perhaps she had been waiting to see whether Marcus already knew. Perhaps she no longer trusted him not to defend the restaurant before his son. "Did Ray contact them?" Marcus asked. "I don't know." Caleb pulled the black journal from his bag and opened near the back. A printed email was folded between the pages. The message came from Harbor and Field's outside counsel to the school district's communications office. It was courteous, restrained, and effective. The company had learned of a student media project concerning a pending commercial transaction. It requested that the district preserve confidentiality, verify all releases, and postpone public presentation until legal concerns were reviewed. It did not demand censorship. It did not need to. A school administrator had told Ms. Hahn to hold Caleb's project. Who told them? Marcus asked. Caleb looked at him with an expression that was older than 13 and still unmistakably a child's. "I thought you did." Marcus understood then why the journal had been left with the recorder. It had not been an invitation to discover the project. It had been a test. Caleb wanted to know whether his father would protect the restaurant from him.
"I didn't," Marcus said. "But are you glad somebody did?" There were answers that arrived ready for applause. This was not one. The acquisition mattered. Employee interviews released publicly could frighten a buyer, expose internal scheduling failures, and damage people Caleb intended to help. The lawyer's concerns were not invented. At the same time, a company that did not yet own Bellwether had reached into a middle school classroom to silence a story about family time while preparing to market Marcus as a devoted father. "Part of me is relieved it won't come out before the contract is signed," Marcus said. "That part is scared. It is not the part one want making the decision." Caleb waited. "I will find out who contacted them," Marcus continued. "I will not ask you to delete it. I do think we need to make sure nobody who spoke to you gets hurt. Ms. Hahn already checked the releases. Then I want to understand them with you there. Not behind your back." Caleb turned the recorder over in his hands. And the schedule? Marcus had spent 3 days searching for a version that preserved primary custody while appearing generous. He could offer 2 nights at Dana's. He could promise more dinners. He could hire help. Every option began with the result he wanted and worked backward. "Let's try your schedule for 6 weeks," he said. "Then the 3 of us talk again. If it isn't working, we change it together." Caleb blinked. "Monday through Thursday at Mom's?" "Yes." The word cost Marcus more than he expected. It admitted that Dana's smaller apartment might currently offer their son something his carefully maintained house did not. It admitted that being the parent who paid the mortgage and knew the dentist's number did not give him ownership of Caleb's comfort. Most painfully, it admitted that Marcus could do the right thing and still spend 4 nights a week missing his child. Caleb nodded. "Okay. That is all." Marcus asked, "What do you want, a speech?" "Absolutely not. Your generation's speeches need editing." Caleb almost smiled again. "Taste first." Marcus looked at the recorder, the journal, and the dinner neither of them had finished. "Right," he said. "Taste first." At 8:30 Dana arrived. Caleb went upstairs to get a charger, leaving his parents alone. Dana read the printed email and then looked at Marcus. "I assumed Ray sent it." "So did Caleb." "Did he?" "He says no." Dana held his eyes. "That wasn't my question." Marcus understood. "I did not send it." "Would you have?" "Yesterday maybe. And today." "Today I want to know why a buyer thinks it can manage my son before it owns my restaurant." Dana folded the email. "Be careful. You have a habit of becoming brave after someone else gets hurt." The sentence was harsh. It was also specific enough to be useful. Marcus put the email in his jacket and drove back to Bellwether. Ray was alone in the office, reviewing the acquisition documents. Marcus placed the email on the desk. "Did you tell Stephanie about Caleb's project?" Ray read the first paragraph and removed his glasses. "I told her there might be a problem. You contacted a buyer's lawyer about my son. I contacted the buyer about material that could affect the sale." "How did you know?" "One of the servers mentioned the interviews after Saturday's tasting. I asked Kiera. She would not show me anything, but she confirmed the subject." "So you went around me. You were already threatening the deal because Caleb was upset. I thought you would either overreact or hide it." Marcus wanted to deny both possibilities. Ray knew him too well. They pressured the school to stop a 13-year-old's project. They asked the district to review it, which the district should do. Employees can sign releases for their voices. They cannot authorize disclosure of sales data, customer information, or private personnel issues. There is no sales data. "Have you heard the whole thing?" "No." "Then you don't know." Ray's logic was not absurd. That was the problem with most decisions that damage people slowly. They arrived dressed as caution. Marcus pulled out the chair opposite him. "You should have come to me. You should have told me your son was interviewing staff in our kitchen." "I didn't know." "Exactly." Ray's anger finally showed. "You are making the acquisition depend on the idea that you are changing, but you don't even know what is happening in your own house. Elaine and I have $300,000 tied up here. I do not get to discover your family crisis after it becomes a legal problem." Marcus sat with that. He had been seeing Ray as the man protecting money over a child. Ray saw Marcus as the man whose private failures could destroy his partner's future. Both views contained truth. "What do you want me to do?" Marcus asked. "Have Caleb withdraw the project permanently. We signed Friday. After closing, Harbor and Field can address the scheduling policies properly. And if the project is accurate? Especially then. You don't negotiate a sale by publishing your defects." Marcus picked up the email. "I will review it with Caleb, his teacher, and the employees who participated. I will not make him bury it to protect a story we sell about ourselves." Ray's face went still. "If you cost us this deal, I will trigger the deadlock clause." The clause had been written for a disagreement neither man thought they would have. It allowed one partner to name a price for the business. The other had to buy at that valuation or sell his own interest on the same terms. Marcus did not have the financing to buy Ray's share. Ray probably did not have it either, but Harbor and Field might back him. "You would force me out?" Marcus asked. "I would protect what both of us built from a decision you are making out of panic." Marcus stood. "Maybe panic is what built the problem." Ray looked tired rather than victorious. "Then fix your problem without making it everyone else's bill." On Thursday afternoon, Marcus sat in the media room at Caleb's school with Dana, Ms. Hahn, the district communications coordinator, and 4 Bellwether employees. Caleb sat closest to the computer but did not touch it until everyone had reviewed the release forms. Nia asked to keep her first name. Omar asked that one sentence about his father's medical appointments be removed. Another employee withdrew entirely after hearing that Harbor and Field was involved. Caleb did not argue. He marked every change on a printed transcript and asked whether he could re-record 2 transitions so nobody's missing voice created a gap. Marcus watched his son handle other people's boundaries with more care than Marcus had handled his. The complete project lasted 14 minutes. It was not an attack on Bellwether, and it did not claim the staff were abused. It was about contradictions ordinary people learn to accept. A restaurant could serve families and still make family life harder for its workers. A father could provide stability and still make his child feel temporary. Near the end, Caleb's voice returned over the sound of Marcus chopping onions. My dad is not a bad boss and he is not a bad dad. That makes this harder to explain. Bad would be easy. He helps everybody when there is a crisis. The problem is that after he saves the day, nobody asks why every day needs saving. Marcus had not read that sentence in the journal. Hearing it aloud stripped him of the arguments he had prepared. The last section contained the deepest thing Caleb had hidden. He described cooking scrambled eggs with Marcus at age 9. Caleb had added cheese before the eggs set, and Marcus had taken the pan, lowered the heat and finished them himself. Marcus remembered a harmless lesson. Caleb remembered standing with an empty spatula. Dad says taste first, then fix it, his recorded voice said, but when I make something he fixes it before anybody can taste it. I used to think I wanted to be a chef. Now I don't know if I wanted that or if it was the only way to be near him. In the dark media room, Marcus pressed his hands together and looked at the floor. Afterward, the district coordinator said the revised project did not disclose protected student information or obvious confidential business data. She still wanted Bellwether to review use of its name and ambient audio, not because the restaurant could dictate the schoolwork, but because a fight would harm Caleb more than anyone. Marcus stated on the record that Bellwether would not challenge the project. He also signed a limited permission for the kitchen sounds Caleb had recorded. Ray had not authorized him to do that alone, but Marcus knew the company's agreement gave him control over culinary media access. It was a narrow power. For once he used it to make space instead of closing it. In the parking lot, Caleb walked beside him while Dana spoke with Ms. Hahn. I didn't know about the eggs, Marcus said. That's because it was eggs. It mattered to you. A lot of little stuff matters after there's enough of it. Marcus nodded. Do you still want to cook? Caleb shoved his hands into his pockets. Sometimes. I like audio more. You're good at it. The levels were low. Marcus laughed once. I deserved that. He waited before asking the next question. What do you want me to do about the sale? Caleb stopped walking. I don't know anything about buying restaurants. You know what the job would do to our schedule. Don't quit and say you did it for me. The answer surprised Marcus. I wasn't going to say that. You would think it? Then every bad day I'd know. Caleb searched for the rest. I don't need you to hate the restaurant. I need you to stop making me the reason for whatever you already decided. There it was. Even sacrifice could be another form of control if Marcus used it to place a debt on his son. He had imagined 2 noble choices: take the deal to secure Caleb's future or reject it to prove Caleb came first. Both allowed Marcus to decide alone and call the result fatherhood. Then I will make the business decision honestly, he said. And our schedule stays a family decision. Including Mom. Marcus glanced toward Dana. Unfortunately, yes. Caleb smiled. I'm telling her you said unfortunately. That was private. Should have put it in a journal. Stephanie called an hour later. Harbor and Field had prepared a revised offer. The travel maximum would drop to 8 nights per month after the first quarter. Marcus's salary would rise to $245,000. They would also create a formal scheduling task force at Bellwether, with Kiera and 2 hourly employees participating. On paper it looked like Marcus had won almost everything he requested. Then Stephanie explained the conditions. Caleb's project would remain inside the classroom for 1 year while the company implemented changes. Marcus would sign a statement saying the recordings reflected isolated scheduling problems under former management practices. Dana and Caleb would approve limited use of the Bell family story in the launch campaign. Harbor and Field would not use Caleb's current image, but they could use the old photograph and refer to Marcus as a single father who created Bellwether for his son. Former management? Marcus asked. I am the management. You would be acknowledging that the acquisition creates a new system. Before the new system exists. The commitment to create it exists. Marcus looked through the office window at Kiera labeling stock for the dinner shift. And my son has to delay his project so the campaign can tell the cleaner story first. Your son is 13. Waiting a year will not damage his academic future. Losing this transaction may materially affect yours. Stephanie let that rest before adding, "This is a serious accommodation, Marcus. We are reducing access to the person we consider essential and increasing compensation. I need something that protects the brand during transition." She was offering him security, time, influence, and enough money to make the last decade feel justified. All he had to do was let the public version of his family speak before his son did. The old Marcus would have called that temporary. He would have promised to correct the story later, after the opening, after the debt cleared, after the next crisis. He had learned that later was where broken promises went to avoid being called broken. "Send both versions of the valuation," he said. "The price with me as culinary director and family story, and the price for the restaurant without either." Stephanie became quiet. "The second number will be substantially lower." "I know. Ray will not accept it." "Then he and I have an honest problem." The final meeting took place Friday morning in Bellwether's empty dining room, beneath the banner about families and tables. Ray had threatened to remove it, then left it hanging because neither man wanted to admit that cloth had become evidence. Stephanie placed two summaries between them. The original transaction valued the company at $3.8 million, subject to debt and closing adjustments. The clean purchase, restaurant, lease, equipment, recipes developed on company time and brand name, but no Marcus employment agreement and no Bell family marketing rights, was valued at $2.6 million. After liabilities, taxes, and transaction costs, the difference to each partner was not theoretical. It was years of financial breathing room. Ray read the lower number twice. "This is punishment." "It is valuation," Stephanie said. "Marcus's continuing role and story rights were assets in the first offer. He is still the chef. He has said he will not make the required commitment." Ray turned to Marcus. "Take the revised job. 8 nights is less than you work now. The task force addresses the staff issue. Caleb can release his school project next year, when it will probably show that things improved. Tell me what part of that is unreasonable." Marcus could not. That was why the choice was difficult. The offer was not evil. It was generous by ordinary business standards. It simply required the same sequence that had governed his home for years. Marcus would decide what was best, other people would wait, and future improvement would justify present silence. "The part where my son has to disappear so my story is worth more," Marcus said. "He is not disappearing. His photograph stays. His voice waits. That is disappearing with better graphic design." Ray pushed the paper away. "You don't get to discover integrity on Friday and charge me $600,000 for it." Marcus did not defend himself. "You're right about the cost. You did not create this situation alone. I approved the schedules. I wrote the slogan. I put Caleb on the website. I let the restaurant depend on me because being indispensable felt safer than trusting anyone. Now the buyer thinks I am the value and I am refusing to be sold that way. You have every right to be angry. Angry doesn't pay back my retirement account." "No," Marcus slid a third document across the table. He had spent half the night with Bellwether's attorney and an independent accountant. "If you want to invoke the deadlock clause at the clean valuation, I will elect to sell my interest. Harbor and Field can finance your purchase and close the lower transaction. You will receive control and the consulting agreement Stephanie offered you. I will take the same valuation I am asking you to accept." Ray stared at him. "You would walk away?" Marcus looked through the service doors toward the kitchen. He could identify every pan by the sound it made on the rack. He knew which burner ran hot, where the floor tilted toward the old drain, and how the room smelled 5 minutes before bread was ready. Bellwether was not only a job. It was the place where Marcus had become the version of himself everyone praised. Leaving it felt less like changing work than losing a language. "I will not burn it down," he said. "I will not force you to stay. But I will not sell Caleb as evidence that I was a good father while asking him to keep quiet about what it felt like." Ray stood and walked into the private dining room. Through the glass, Marcus watched him call Elaine. He did not pace. He listened for several minutes, spoke briefly, and sat in one of the chairs they had selected together 11 years earlier. When he returned, his face had the flat exhaustion of someone accepting a result he would not pretend to like. "Elaine says I have spent 10 years blaming you for working too much while cashing every benefit of it." He looked at the clean offer. "I still think you are making the wrong business decision. You may be right. And I am not forgiving the difference in price. I didn't ask you to." Ray picked up a pen. 6-week transition. Kiera becomes executive chef if she accepts. Staff scheduling changes begin before closing, not after. Harbor and Field cannot call those interviews isolated incidents. Stephanie made a note. The company can agree to a neutral statement that scheduling practices are under review. And the family banner comes down, Ray said. Marcus looked up. Ray's mouth tightened. We haven't earned it. They signed the clean framework, not the final sale. Lawyers would still argue over warranties, recipe ownership, and how many plates constituted an asset. Nothing in business transformed because 3 people reached emotional clarity before lunch. But the decision that mattered had been made. Marcus gave up the higher price, the title, and the chance to prove his years of absence had been an investment with a spectacular return. In exchange, he received no applause, no guarantee Caleb would choose his house again, and no certainty that he would not regret it. He received only the clean burden of a choice he could tell the truth about. 6 weeks later, Caleb's project played at the district student audio showcase. Marcus arrived 20 minutes early and sat beside Dana through every presentation, including one 7-minute investigation into cafeteria forks that tested the outer limits of parental devotion. When Caleb's piece ended, the room offered ordinary, warm applause. Marcus did not look around to see who was impressed. He watched Caleb at the side of the stage, checking the recorder levels for the next student. The bellwether sale was still moving through closing. Kiera had accepted the executive chef position after negotiating 2 consecutive days off and the authority to approve staffing levels. Ray remained cautious with Marcus, but they could work in the same room without turning every sentence into a verdict. Marcus's payout would clear the refinance on his house and leave a reasonable cushion, not lifelong wealth. He had begun interviewing for culinary training and food service operations roles. For the first time in his adult life, he told employers that evening availability was limited before they offered him anything. The 6-week custody trial did not end with Caleb moving back. He stayed with Dana during school nights and spent long weekends with Marcus. Wednesday dinner rotated between both homes, and if Marcus had to cancel, he was required to say, "I am choosing work tonight," not, "I have no choice." He canceled once. Saying the honest sentence felt terrible. Caleb was disappointed. The world did not end, and neither of them pretended disappointment was proof that love had failed. On Marcus's final Sunday at Bellwether, Caleb joined him in the kitchen before service. The old red recipe card rested beside the stove, stained at the corners and no longer needed for the chowder. Caleb cracked eggs into a pan and added cheese too early. Marcus saw it happen. His hand moved halfway toward the spatula, then stopped. Caleb noticed. "You're doing something weird with your fingers." "I am minding my business." "Looks painful." "It is new." The eggs tightened around the edges. Caleb lowered the heat on his own. They were slightly uneven when he divided them between 2 plates. Marcus took a bite. Caleb waited with the guarded expression of someone accustomed to correction arriving before praise. "Needs pepper," Marcus said. Caleb's face fell for half a second. Marcus handed him the grinder. "But they're good. You could have led with that." "I'm still in training." After they ate, Caleb pulled the black journal from his backpack. The bent cover had been repaired with blue tape. Marcus looked away automatically. "Relax," Caleb said. "I'm not leaving it here." He opened to a clean page, wrote the date, and placed the notebook between them. The new heading said, "Things we actually said." Marcus read only that line. "Do I get a column?" "Maybe. Your answers are long." "That is fair." Caleb picked up the pen, then paused. "Taste first." Marcus took another bite of the eggs his son had made without rescue. "Taste first," he said. This time he understood that the promise was never about knowing how to fix what came next. It was about letting someone else's truth reach him before he decided what it needed.